Some of you expressed concern about the length of these videos. For your convenience, check out the table of contents on the right-hand side. Feel free to start at the beginning and work your way through the video for some awesome in-depth insights. But if you see what you came for, or just want to see something over that you didn't catch the first time, please feel free. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Hey guys, I'm Shaft of the Clinic Casting crew, and welcome to Crash Course. Today we're going to be talking about Zerg vs. Zerg in both two aspects. One, injects and why they are crucial. Two, we're going to be talking about decision making in regard to roaches. So in fact, both of these topics here are going to have a lot to do with both decision making and macro, and you'll see a lot of that going into this. Initially, I'd like to go ahead and start off with the macro aspect of things. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on exactly some key specifics. Now, some of these people are going to know, some of these you may not. But the idea is, if a Bronzy who just got the game a week ago and knows at least the basic units, they would be able to follow this video. So we're going to cover a little bit of groundwork and then work our way up from there. You guys know how we do. Anyways, oftentimes Zerg vs. Zerg can feel really, really confusing. Unlike other matchups, mirror matches don't give you an inherent advantage or weakness that you can exploit. In fact, one might say that rather than a Venn diagram of racial strengths and weaknesses, a mirror matchup secures a given race's advantages. I'll explain. Because this may at first seem like an abstract concept. Let's talk specifics. A Terran racial advantage is its ability to control space. In Terran vs. Terran, historically, a little bit different today's meta, but historically, you often see long siege tank lines arrayed 1-2 screens away from the enemy, with Vikings overhead fighting an aerial war above for vision of the battlefield. Tanks, of course, shoot further than they see. Just a hair, but enough. So the Vikings serve as a spotter. In fact, that's what they're called. Who can control the air dictates who wins an otherwise unassailable position. Reason for this? Neither Terran wants to attack into the other. They have the same composition. It's all going to come down to who is sieged first and who has a better concave. If you attack into your enemy, you grant him both of those advantages. Zerg, we don't control space like Terran. However, we're not without our advantages, because our workers, our army units, and our high-tech units all come from one source. That's larva. This is a key advantage for many reasons. Must always be thought of as a somewhat hidden resource. This is amplified by our previously mentioned law of mirrors. Per any given 45-second period, one hatchery produces 3 larvae. Pair a queen with that hatchery, and now you get 7 larvae in that exact same period. From 4 minutes on, using a pull into a hatchery build, each player should have at least 1 queen. This is 7 larvae between 4 minutes and 4:45, by which time a hatchery will have complete, adding a second or another starting larva, and it will spawn 1 larva in that 45-second interval. So in fact, from 4 to 4:45, you end up with 9 larvae. That's a huge swarm. That could be drones, that could be Zerglings, but that key little timing will flat out make or break your Zerg vs. Zerg games. And it's not actually a timing that they talk about that often, but it is pretty significant, because the larva is really what's going to count in your Zerg vs. Zerg games. From 4 minutes on, you know, both players are going to be approximately 21 drones, and you get the second queen completing, and at this point decision making becomes so crucial. Like I said, do you make an army? Do you ling rush your opponent? Have you somehow added a roach warren early on and got enough gas to roach ling attack your opponent? Or do you play defensive? Do you just make some drones, make just enough to stay alive, maybe a spine crawler, maybe some extra queens? Bunch of different options. But it's a decision that you have to make. You can't avoid making it. Now, how do you answer that? Like, because some of those situations, you know, if you just blindly do it, your opponent will have blindly countered it, and there's not much learning that can be done. So what you want to do is you want to scout at the same time. Find out what your opponent has made, and that's where your decision making is going to come in quite a bit. In accordance with the law of mirrors, though, let's get here before we go there. But in accordance with the law of mirrors, this great advantage that allows Zergs to gain a huge worker lead in any other matchup now haunts him by forcing his drone count to rise too quickly on pain of death. It's for this reason, the law of mirrors, that injects are that important. The easiest way to lose a Zerg versus Zerg is to miss an inject. And this emphasis on mechanics is why many people have a harder time with this matchup. A hatchery isn't going to produce any natural larva. It gets +3 per 45-second period. If there's already 3 or more larvae present at that hatchery, it's just not going to make any more until you use that 3. If you were at 0 and you have an inject pop off, it's not going to go past the 4. You have to make sure you are below 3 larvae at every hatchery. Stockpiling is very, very bad. Not only should you spend your larva, but you need to make sure that your queens, every 45 seconds, are hitting their injects or their creep tumors. The law of mirrors influences many aspects of Zerg vs. Zerg. Take the first Overlord in ZvZ, for example. It's parked often as close to the natural mineral line as possible. Both scouting the hatchery, which, if he doesn't have one by a certain point in the game, you know it's a 1 base all in. And, in the case that they do build a hatchery, is the ling all in with no drones rallied to that new base? You'll see the larva expenditure. If you don't see drones there, build a defense. When in doubt, make an army. Even if you're wrong, you can always apply counter pressure to your opponent, because if he droned last round and you thought, you know, he was making roaches, and he droned but then left them in his main, they're not getting as good a mineral rate income as they could be if they were at the natural. So he's hurting himself in hiding those drones. And then you can hurt him even more just by using these army that you've already produced to just go force him to make an army. So not only does he have to make an army, but he's hurt himself in trying to psych you out. Great option. It's ironic that the same mechanism that encourages high drone count in other matchups, that is the ability to make more than 1 drone per hatchery per cycle, prevents it in mirror matchups. Because your opponent could flat out kill you if you make too many drones. Welcome to the law of mirrors. In this next phase of our lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the openers in Zerg vs. Zerg. Currently, there's basically a dichotomy of openers, meaning there's 2 choices. Gasless versus gassy openers. Now, each have their perks and benefits and all that sort of thing. So, for basically the next 3 minutes and 25 seconds, we are going to be taking a look, comparing the build orders. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, however, it is important to understand how the 2 match up at certain key points within the game. Excuse me. We are looking at currently 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Essentially, both players are at the same opener at this point. One player's gone hatch first, one player's gone pull first. That is slight difference, but it doesn't really factor into the gassy versus gasless dichotomy, so we won't look too heavily at that. We're just going to assume at this point, both players at 15 drones each. They're essentially opening the same. Again, you could make a case for pull first versus hatch first, and that is something, you know, we cover extensively on this channel in other videos. We want to look at gasless versus gassy here, so I just want to underscore that going straight into it. Now, over the next 10 seconds, we will just see a slight lead here for Paranoid, and he's going to maintain this lead as he's the player that is going gasless. We'll have Nerchio going gassy. You can see Nerchio taking the extractor now. You can also see the fact that Paranoid's hatchery just slightly faster than his opponent's. His pull is slightly slower, that means a slightly more delayed queen, but he does have a slightly better economy that we'll be factoring in. Nerchio, of course, is going to be cutting drones at this point. We're now at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Take a look at our worker count. Nerchio has been cutting drones. These drones are now 4 behind his opponent. His opponent has 18 to 14. We still don't have a pull yet for Paranoid, however, and Nerchio is already beginning to mine gas at this point. We have Nerchio at 560 or so. It's fluctuating. It says 460 right now, but it's averaging 560 to Paranoid's 680, again fluctuating, but it's roughly 680 per minute. The reason for the difference is A, Nerchio had to cut drones, and B, Nerchio is still mining gas. Now, why am I emphasizing mineral income? Again, minerals help you buy more drones. Drones do not require any gas whatsoever. So as a Zerg player, because we can make more than one drone at a time, we want to delay making an army so that we can pump out more drones for as long as possible. Now, the Law of Mirrors throws a monkey wrench into that plan because your opponent could be pumping out nothing but army and flat out kill you. We've covered that in a previous segment in this video, but it's still something that you want to keep in mind. We're at 4.5 minutes, and the income is still highly favoring Paranoid. Paranoid still has not taken a gas, and he's got roughly 220 more income than his opponent. His opponent still mining the gas, has just got his metabolic boost, but is still mining gas with 3 workers at this stage in the game. His opponent, no gas, but these drones are taking some little bit of damage from the Zerglings, so the Zerglings should be able to kill off some workers. Potentially. It's not really designed to, but it can take advantage of it. It's more of a flexible build that Nerchio's doing. Scout your opponent, adapt, react, that sort of thing. Okay, so first thing to note, Nerchio was able to get 2 workers killed at this stage in the game. As you can see, the -2 just represents those 2 that were killed, so technically it should be 26 workers for Nerchio to 26 for Paranoid at this stage. We do finally have a gas being taken now for Paranoid, but he's taking it in as natural. That's a great decision because it essentially, if he can keep his opponent out of his out of his main, he won't be able to know if there's 1 gas, 3 gas, 2 gas. He'll only be able to see this 1 gas, and it could potentially scare Nerchio. It's a mind game is all that is. Now, Nerchio, on the other hand, has still been mining with the 3 workers on this gas, and is as such making a baneling nest. This could turn into a really aggressive ling baneling attack if he chooses. We'll see what he does decide. Now, the last thing we want to take a look at is the income. We've got 760 for Nerchio with his gas income compared to his opponent's 900. So the worker counts are even, essentially, at this point, but Nerchio is still behind on mineral income. It's at 6 minutes here that we have Nerchio moving out with about 4 lings. And you can see that his baneling nest and his ling speed are going to be finishing up here at this same time. This is just shy of 44 supply, so this is when things do tend to start getting interesting anyway. And Nerchio has a lot of options here. He can hit Ling Bling, which with his Overlord spread, we're going to look a lot more at his Overlord spread later, but you can see he's kind of starting to set up for. He's in some pretty good scouting locations to see if his opponent sees his units coming down the pipeline, and he's already got these lings set up to the side where he can get some banelings in. However, his opponent does have queens in good position. The only real weakness here is this side attack flank and the ability to possibly get up this ramp. But we should see Paranoid going ahead and making some defenses here, because, you know, it is that time in the game and he's not real sure what his opponent's doing. This lack of map control means he has to prepare some defensives just in the nick of time. And we do have a pretty good wall off the queens here to just hold that wall, and the Ling Bling attack is going to have to be canceled, but the lings are going to get up here into the main. Now, we've gone a little bit past where we wanted to, so let's back this up to 6:15. And now that we understand a little bit about why Paranoid made the defenses, and yeah, Paranoid slipped up, let the lings in, but ultimately it all comes down to this moment right here. The 6 minute 15 seconds, Nerchio is applying a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, he's taken the lead in drones. At 6 minutes, Paranoid was at 35. He had pulled just ahead, 35 to 28. But in just 15 seconds, Nerchio has caught up to the 35 and forced his opponent to spend more drones. With this position, Nerchio has a lot of options. I keep saying that. Nerchio can take a third. There's not much Paranoid can do about it. Paranoid does not have like a +1 on the way for a roach timing or anything like that. So there's nothing Paranoid could do to really punish Nerchio for that. Nerchio could go into Mutalisks, really clear the Overlords off the map, and use Lings counterattacks where his opponent just can't scout them. It's a really strong style. You don't want to stay on the Mutalisks for too long, but it's still a very viable style. It's his game to decide, and that's what Nerchio likes to establish, that kind of in-game presence. Now, we've looked a lot at the openers here for these players. We've looked at the worker counts. We've compared the Gassy and the gasless openers. But let's take a look at the Gassy versus gasless. These are the summaries. We've seen the in-depth portion. Gasless opener, here's the good sides of it. You can get a better economy. You're safer against early like ling bling cheese because you've got the extra queens. You saw that from the wall off. You also get faster roaches because you're not wasting gas on metabolic boost, which means you'll have more minerals to get the roach worn up sooner. You also lose map control, which we saw just here at the 6:15 mark, and the slower third as a result of that map control. Now, why would you want to go gassy? Because it does hurt your economy. That is one con of it. But you get the faster tech. You can clearly see that Nerchio could have taken a lot of gas here and gone right into a very fast muta. That's still an option here at 6:15. He has map control, which means he can choose to get that third. And as we just saw and are about to see again, he has the potential for aggression. So if you want to be the player who reacts, who lets your opponent dictate the pace of the game, gasless openers are amazing for you. It's a posture. And if you like to be the player who makes decisions and really forces the tone of the game, gassy openers like Nerchio is demonstrating here, amazing choice for you. Okay, so we're looking at the Overlords. Notice his Overlord first goes to the top right position. This is based on his spawn on Frost Ladder Edition. If you know where your opponent is, you can send it straight to their natural. This is the reason he doesn't send it to the natural, is just because he's not going to the right base immediately. But this is the safest way to send an Overlord. You could also send it straight down, but there's some reasons not to do it. It's really a matter of choice, this first Overlord on this map. But moving along, you can see where he's sending the second Overlord straight down into the natural. It's a shorter distance overall, because think about it, you're going to the natural, whereas see, his opponent's already there. So his opponent could just not be expanding. By going straight into the main, he guarantees he'll see this about the time he sees this. So he'll know at a certain point in time, we'll cover it, exactly where his opponent is. He'll know, okay, he's not here, because he's not scouted this Overlord. So he's either here or here. He's on a southern base. And his next Overlord's going to scout this location. And boom. If he did not see a hatchery here, he could safely assume he's either being all-in or his opponent's cross-map. I'm not sure his build would change either way, as he does have a fairly safe build, but it is important to know. Now, the next Overlords and the repositioning of this Overlord are going to be pretty key. And Nerchio even commenting on Overlords, the fact that his opponent is close to losing one. But anyways, the positioning of the Overlords are very important right now. He can see any lings coming out of his opponent's base coming up this flank right here. This Overlord will intercept. This Overlord still getting in position. This Overlord, on the other hand, isn't about intercepting units. Remember how at earlier we discussed larva expenditure? This is literally just to keep an eye on the drones. And he can always pull it back a little bit if his opponent starts targeting it, but it's just going to keep poking in here, keeping an eye on the drone count. And we're going to continue looking at just the vision of Nerchio here, up till probably about the 9-minute mark. But see this Overlord? He's getting the Overlords in positions to scout for bases and his opponent moving out. So you can see this Overlord here is going to be getting in a position that allows him to both see the third, or a possible third, and see, he sees the drone go down there, boom, immediately moves that Overlord. And now he'll be able to keep an eye on this drone count as well as poking here with the lings. But let's pause the Overlord position. So we've got lings at the front of the base that will see any kind of roaches or anything like that pushing out. He's going to have to micro these really well to make sure they don't die to queens, but he's Nerchio. So I would say, you know, to newer players or people trying to use this build, make sure you hotkey these lings. Make sure you keep your eye on them at all times. Be ready to pull them back at a moment's notice. As far as other Overlords, we have this one here. That's, again, going to scout this early. This one here is going to catch anything that Overlord might have missed. He's also got some vision of this Xel'Naga Tower, but that's Xel'Naga Tower because it's taking place on this left-hand side. Not too important. This Overlord here, just to scout for a third, and he's eventually going to want to put an Overlord in this position here. But at this point, Overlord positioning looks really good for Nerchio. Let's take a look at Paranoids. Paranoid is playing a defensive posture because he's going gasless. So he's got most of his Overlords tucked back, scouting for banelings. Remember the pressure Nerchio put on. So most of his stuff is pulled back a little bit. He does have this one here to scout for this third. And this Overlord scouts the drone moving out. So he will also know that there's a third here. So mostly Paranoid just wants to know, am I being attacked? Am I safe? Because he's seen the third been taken, he can adjust his strategy accordingly. Now, if he had saw that there was no third at either location, he would probably not have taken his own third and would be playing a little more defensively and prepping against Mutalisks. Benchmarks are essentially certain times in the game where you're going to want certain tech, certain amount of units, a certain economy, some key item that's going to be essential to the overall development of the game. You can identify these times and check your own play. Like, when I give you these times and you go play this on the ladder, watch your replay. If you lose the game, double check the benchmarks. Are you hitting the timings? If not, that's what you want to improve on. With benchmark timings, it's the easiest way to improve your gameplay because you almost essentially know what's going on immediately. Now, there are exceptions. For instance, this build with like a 10 pull, it's just not covered. Your timings are going to be twisted, but we're trying to cover the majority of situations here, not all of them. In any case, the first key timing we're going to cover is 6.5, but I have the timer at 6:20 because there's a little bit of a tie-in here. At 6:20 is when we've got this ling bling thing arriving. It's just lings at this point, but there is a potential for banelings. Nerchio's just finished a ling speed, just finished the baneling nest. He's starting up an evolution chamber to go ahead and transition out, and he's working on one gas, which he's held this whole time. So we'll take a look here and slow it down a little bit. But at 6.5 minutes, you know, he's moving in, delays a little bit of creep, and spots the Roach Warren, the 2 evolution chambers. Now these were reactions to seeing the lings moving forward. It's just something Paranoid had to do. However, this is going to create an opening here for Nerchio to go ahead and take a third. It is behind the ling aggression based on what he's scouting that he decides, you know, he can go ahead and take a third. He was already pretty certain, you know, his opponent did go gasless, but with the ling pressure and seeing that, you know, he's not going to be able to do any pressure with a huge ling bling, he goes ahead and decides to take the third. Just shy of this third, he will go ahead and take +2 gas. That's going to be here at 6 minutes and 45 seconds. He does that basically as soon as he's got this third up and running. He starts the +1 missile attack because he is going to eventually go into Roaches, and he does go for 2 gas. So not only is he getting a faster third, he's now starting to close the gap in gas count between the 2 players. Yeah, as you can see, Paranoid actually twice the gas count right now. Nerchio will take the lead back, but Nerchio has had the lead for a while, so it's going to even out pretty much. Now, we are going to be looking next up at the 7.5 minute mark, but we'll just take a look at, you know, what Nerchio can see at this moment. You know, he's got the lings in here. And that's nice, but it's just an accident. You don't want to rely on that. However, he does see his third base, and that's awesome sauce. We went past 7.5 minutes, but here we go. Okay, so we've got the +1 range on the way. We've got the 2 gas now mining. We've got our layer started, and we're keeping some scouting lings moving out along the map. We've got a Roach Warren on the way, about 3/4 of the way done. But most importantly, we've got our layer started. And then we will build a 4th gas once the layer is near completion. You know, 3/4 to full is good enough. It really helps to tie timings, like, you know, when to take that 4th gas to other key timings, like when your layer finishes. Just makes remembering things a lot easier. Now we are having another evolution chamber built here, and I'm intentionally ignoring that battle down there because it's not important at this stage in the game. And we've got that extractor finishing now. Okay, so we've got Paranoid here with some lings on the field. How did he manage to take map control? Well, now we're going to go back and watch that battle. Okay, so a huge swarm of lings are moving out across the map, and Nerchio, of course, sees them with those lings he kept at the front of his opponent's base. He could choose to, you know, build some defenses here, but he feels pretty safe in what he's got. He's already got a couple of Roaches on the field, and he's got Glial Reconstitution on the way as well. So the Roaches should be able to hold off against these lings just fine. There we go. Nice defense there. He's got just enough Roaches to keep himself alive, and he's even going to swing some of these over here to the right. So, not that big of a battle, like I said, but it was important that he saw those lings moving out. Now here at 9.5 minutes, we're hitting another benchmark timing. At this point in the game, we're going to have our Hydralisk Den started. We do have Glial Reconstitution on the way, and +1 Carapace is on the way as +1 ranged is finished. It's also at this point in the game we take our 5th and 6th extractor, and you don't see the Hydralisk Den just yet. There we go, there it is. Now this 1 Baneling and some Roaches going to be peeling off these lings. These lings were in a position to do some amazing counterattack work, but it's just not going to happen. And, you know, Nerchio playing a very strong game with the Roach Hydras, but his opponent has given him map control. It's going to be over the next 2 to 3 minutes that we see Paranoid starting to contest map control with these counterattack squads. They'll look at these lings swarming in here. This is definitely going to be able to take out some spine crawlers and whatnot. And the Roach Hydra forces of Nerchio are out of position. This is going to force him to pull back. And the spine crawler, you know, bought just enough time for Nerchio to to return home, but his attack was thwarted, and that's going to give Paranoid enough time to pump out his own units. Now, taking a look at the unit count, we actually have more Roaches for Paranoid, but the advantage still goes to Nerchio on the back of these Hydralisks. Both players are at 1/1 upgrades as well, so that's not going to be a significant factor. And at this point in the game, Nerchio is building up to a timing attack that will arrive about 13:30. He just wants to secure his base pretty well, and this would have happened a lot earlier had Paranoid not been on top of these Ling counterattacks. Now, here we are, 13:30. Here's the timing attack. We've got Roach speed, we've got Ling speed, we've got Hydralisk range. He's only just now getting Roach movements, or Hydralisk movement speed, though. He's got +2 Carapace on the way, but +2 missile attack has finished. Now, he's got a small timing window because his opponent's +2 missile attack is also about to finish. So he's not going to be able to get too much of an advantage off that, but had Paranoid been even 10, 15, 20 seconds shy of hitting +2 missile attack, which, by the way, lower level players are not going to be that perfect, so you can really abuse that if you hit your timings right. We also have 47 Roaches and 10 Hydralisks here for Nerchio. His opponent has 37 and 12, so we'll have to see how the positioning works for either player to really see who's going to win this. And remember, Nerchio is the offensive player, so his opponent will have a defender's advantage, his reinforcements will arrive sooner, and will probably have a better concave. This has the potential to being a really good attack, but it also has the potential to be a really bad engagement. Now, we did have a nice concave there for Nerchio, but Paranoid being very smart and pulling back, and he's really careful not to engage too far out. He's keeping his units pre-split. Nerchio doing a really good job hurting this rock. The rock will allow him to get an even better concave. And as you can see, he's sitting in some changelings there to scout his opponent, but Nerchio is still not able to get a good concave. This is actually not a good position for him. As you can see, most of his Roaches are not attacking. His opponent's got a much better concave, extending all the way up in this position. My god, you can see the defender's advantage just playing a role here. This is not a good engagement for Nerchio, but he had a lot of dead supply. He was approaching max, and as soon as this attack is over, he's going to go ahead and throw down an infestation pit, and he's going to transition and, resupply so that he'll be able to defend this fort. He's resupplying right now. We're waiting on the infestation pit. He'll be after the 4th base. There it is. Alright, so at this point in the game, Nerchio has aggressed. He has spent his bank, and he is now able to transition into an infestation pit while staying low on resources. That's really the key here. His opponent actually floating a little bit, so Nerchio's keeping his macro alive just by abusing this dead supply. Now, he's only lost about 600 more resources than his opponent in this tab over here, so he's got pretty much a good advantage. He's got a lot of time here on the infestation pit ahead of his opponent, so the only real thing Paranoid has going for him is that his 4th base has not been scouted by Nerchio. So that could go pretty much any way, but Nerchio pretty much can assume that the 4th base has to go down. Now, this little Ling counterattack could do some damage, but the Spinecrawler is still in a great position. Now, here is the hive for Nerchio, so he will be getting a much faster hive than his opponent. And we're moving into the 17-minute, 30-second benchmark, which isn't so much like a unit or tech count as the fact that he starts throwing some units at this 4th base. He's taking the Zanaga Tower. This is incrementally amazing because he's taking the Zanaga Tower. Now he's peeled off a couple units to go to the 4th base just to check while holding this position here. This position is a huge crutch point because he knows his opponent's going to have to swing down this lower flank to deal with the Roaches. and that keeps him out of position. If he can force his opponent's movements one way, he can perhaps exploit them, or at least buy himself more time to finish his hive, knowing that he's ahead. Here it goes. This is all going to come down to these players positioning. Let's get some vision on the position. Yeah, that rhymed. Alright, so it's another potentially bad concave here for Nerchio, but Paranoid not microing properly and not pulling back as you would expect. Nerchio doing a great job keeping the Roaches in front, and Paranoid being forced to retreat to the high ground, which if Nerchio attacks up there, he may be wiped out. The Roach reinforcements are going to be enough there to push Nerchio right on back, but the 3-3 upgrades have begun, where Paranoid is going for a big infester ball. We have Nerchio just now starting pathogen glands a little bit late. That could be rather devastating for him, but these lings coming in here trying to do some damage to the drones, but Roaches intercepting at just the nick of time. Spikecaller would have done okay, but taken some damage, but the Roaches not so much. Now we have another gas finishing for Nerchio, but here we go. We've got a great concave for Nerchio, but Paranoid pushing in here, brute forcing his way. Now good fungal growth here on the Hydralisks. That's going to force any kiting from the Hydralisks to basically stop, and the Hydralisks being the glass cannon damage dealer, Roaches definitely going to need that DPS, but Nerchio circling here with the Roaches, getting a good position, going to run past Paranoid's army and try and scout here for any extra bases, sees that there are none, and is going to retreat on home via an alternative path. Now, neither player going for the Ultralisk Cavern just yet. It's pretty hard to transition out in a situation like this. There's just so much aggression, both players and a maxed supply. Looks like Nerchio are going to be moving out down to the middle through this tendril of creep, and he's looking for the perfect concave. Now, how do you spot a concave? Basically, it's whoever's got the biggest circle. You can look at it in terms of circles, half circles, a blue half circle, a red half circle. You'll see it in the next engagement. Do 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 dun 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 dun. And all this poking back and forth is literally just them hoping to catch the opponent out of position and able to exploit a concave. But both of these guys, such good players that that just was never really a possibility. And here goes Paranoid with an alternate attack path here to this 5th base of Nerchio, and Nerchio going instead for a base race. These guys choosing not to attack into each other. It was seeming like an endless stalemate there, so it's a great base race decision, especially for Nerchio, knowing his opponent's got infestors, which just are not that great in a base race situation. Think about it. Buildings don't care about fungal growths. Spawn the infested Terran, that's actually pretty good against buildings, but it only kills 1 or 2 buildings. Not that, you know, they don't do good DPS, they just don't really move that fast. So they're not able to take care of buildings spreading out like Nerchio is doing now. And in fact, spreading out his drone count like this, taking all the bases, is going to make it so much harder for Paranoid to eliminate everything, whereas Paranoid never had map control in this game, and as such, is going to have a hard time sending his drones much of anywhere. What Nerchio is doing right now, knowing he has a slightly weaker army, but that his opponent's has a higher infestor count, including 5 more infestors on the way, he chooses not to engage the mass infestors until his opponent's economic backbone is eliminated. There is no more economy now for either player. However, it's going to be harder for Paranoid to resupply. Paranoid's going to need a meat shield constantly resupplying to keep his infestors in the situation he wants. Nerchio took that option away from him. And here goes the final battle. Finish him! Alright, so we actually have a really great concave here for Paranoid. He knows this is the epic final battle. Both players with the splits. And the thing is, Nerchio is down 13 army supply. But Nerchio has the bases. So it all comes down to who attacks into whom. This is all about the positioning. All about it. And we'll see. As you can see, Nerchio has a lot more bases than his opponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Compared to 1 that's nearly mined out. 2 that's nearly mined out. This does not come down to army position. This is economic position. Nerchio, with decision making, key roach positioning, establishing map control, is now slowly strangling his opponent. He doesn't feel any rush. There's no reason for him to attack into this. What's the reason to force the engagement? To stop his opponent from mining? His opponent is supply blocked. He's mining from 2 dying bases and has no fresh income. Nerchio's just going to go home. Nerchio has established a lead. Now these 2 lings burrowed, slightly annoying, but that amount of drones can easily hold off 2 lings. A couple of roaches swinging down here trying to be annoying, but Nerchio's smart and just pulls a couple of roaches off and gonna circle around here. Boom, regroups his army and just continues flooding both sides of this to stop any kind of counterattacks. Great usage of the map terrain to his advantage. And again, he's just slowly choking the life out of Paranoid. Paranoid has depleted most of his bank and cannot replenish it. Nerchio has approached 200 supply. Paranoid, knowing that he's dying, he knows it. Take a look. He only knows about 1, 2, 3, 4 bases. But that's enough. And here's the final engagement. It all comes down to the concave. I missed the beginning of that, so let's start it over. Here we go. Great concave here for Nerchio. Paranoid has his units clumped up, and Nerchio just going to swing here into this exposed flank. And now there's nothing protecting the infestors. GG. So clearly that game came down to some basic fundamentals. And it's really the fundamentals stacking one atop the other that really makes a professional player great. We saw both players keeping an eye on each other's drone count and larva expenditure. I was trying to combine the words. We saw both players trying to establish Overlord patterns, with Nerchio successfully taking the lead due to his map control. And we also saw key roach positioning that will help on any map, showing how to get the perfect concave. And finally, we showed how important economies are as opposed to armies. I'm Shaft of the Clanning Casting Crew. If you like this video, if it helped you out, please hit like. That helps me out a ton. Please share it with your friends. Get the word out there. Tell people about Crash Course. Like I said, I'm Shaft of the Clanning Casting Crew. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
신앙 선수가 되는 거고요.
그렇죠.
멀티에 방해도 받지 않으면서 안전하게 해주고 있는 모습인데, 맹독충의 스피드업이 되기 전에, 즉 전방 위에서만 싸워야 되고 전방만 좀 제거하고 마지막에 스캐너만 뿌리고 이 근육을 살려가지고 그렇습니다. 대응을 잘못하면은 그 상황에 치워질 수 있으나 현재까지는 준비를 이시동 선수가 조금 더 잘해주고 있었다, 이렇게 생각을 해야 될 것 같습니다. 그렇죠. 그 상황에 신영 선수가 좋습니다. 인디가 계속 앞서서 싸움을 걸 수 있는 건 보통 싸워서요. 써먹어야 되거든요. 힘을